Yeah, so we are live. Um, Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. A very warm welcome to day six, session eight of the third International Conference and Pop Festival for Youth-led Climate Action 2021. We are delighted to have you all join us for one of the biggest youth-led events for climate action. My name is Drishya Pathak, and I'm the Pop Youth Mentor at the Pop Movement. The Pop family is excited to welcome you to this session on climate careers. This session will explore how young people can identify climate careers in diverse fields, utilizing their skills and passions. It will highlight on people who have dedicated their lives to climate careers, as well as showcase strategies to expose young people to how they can intervene their passion for climate action into their career choices. We have Professor Dr. Dasher, Director US Asia Technology Management Center, Stanford University. Uh, he also serves on program and review committees for government and private sectors, science and technology, funding programs, research institutes in Japan and Thailand. He is an advisor to startup companies, business accelerators, venture capital firms, and nonprofits in Silicon Valley, China, India, Japan, South Korea. From 1998 to 2015, he concurrently served as the executive director of Stanford Center for Integrated Systems, and he was an outside board of director and member of the management council of Tohoku University from 2004 to 2010. From 1960 to 1990, Dr. Dasher was director of the U.S. State Department's Advanced Training Centers in Yokohama and Seoul that provided full-time language and area studies to the US and the selected Commonwealth country diplomats. From 1990 to 1993, he developed new international business lines. As a board director of two startup companies in Tokyo, he received the MA and PhD degrees in linguistics from Stanford University, and his undergraduate degree is in clarinet and orchestra conducting from San Francisco Conservatory of Music. With that, I would like to invite Dr. Dasher to please come and address all the young people who are part of this meeting as well as who are watching this live, because this particularly this topic is very important for all of us when we talk about the transition and when we talk about taking action, and we also talk about the small window of opportunity. Over to you, Dr. Dasher. Thank you.
Drishya, thank you very much for that kind introduction. You gave more detail than probably anyone would care about, but you can see that I've had a number of different careers in my life. And today I'm happy to talk with everyone in the pop movement about climate careers. This is an incredibly important topic, but I want to start out by saying that every career is a climate career. What we're going to talk about is climate action and how that fits with what's called disruptive innovation. Then we'll talk about disruptive innovation and entrepreneurship. And then we'll talk about becoming an agent of change, no matter what kind of career path you take. So every career will let you make a difference in this world. You know, there in the center, you have some jobs and organizations that are directly focusing on climate change. I was delighted to find out that one of my research assistants at Stanford this summer has an internship in a company that's doing carbon sequestration. So new energy systems, there's a number of things that are directly trying to either counter climate change or mitigate climate change. A broader set of companies, a bigger group, are the organizations that are promoting or enabling ways to address climate change. So for instance, if you're a parts maker for an electric vehicle company, maybe what you're doing is not so different from what parts makers have always done, but you are enabling something that improves the climate. It's this area where you have advocacy groups and teaching. So very frankly, I have to say that instead of fitting in the center, I fit into this area, right? I'm trying to make my organization enable and promote climate change. An even broader set of companies or organizations are those that are committed to green principles. So everything from Amazon to some big retail store is saying that they have a goal of going carbon neutral by a certain date. Other kinds of ESG commitments, right? Environmental, sustainable, and governance kind of principles are organizations that are committed to a good thing no matter what business line they're doing. And then even if your organization is not particularly enlightened, you, if you have a job, you're getting an income that will give you the financial resources and the knowledge and the connections in order to make a personal commitment to climate preservation. So really, every career will let you make a difference. But we're at a time at present where sustainability requires disruptive change, not just adding on something new, but changing what we've been doing. It's a dilemma. Unless we're unhappy with the present situation, we don't want to change. People don't. Our old habits give us comfort. Organizations spend years developing brand value and knowledge of their specific industry, connections with customers and suppliers that they don't want to throw away. But yet, sustainability requires us to adopt new lifestyles now in order to save the future of humanity. Moreover, companies have to change their fundamental way of thinking to adopt new economic models that include sustainability and also social inclusiveness to their traditional measures of growth and profitability. So a climate career is some career where you are enabling and motivating people and organizations to make this kind of big change. So since the change involves disrupting your current activity, it's really a process of disruptive innovation, which is led by entrepreneurs. This is where I want to go first with our discussion. So climate action requires giving up the old ways. Most innovation in companies is really incremental. Incrementation is really the creation of new value, but there is no new value unless it's actually used in the real world. That means that for a disruptive innovation, people disrupt what they've been doing in order to adopt the new innovation. They do so because they prefer the new way. Not People typically don't change just because somebody tells them to. They do it when they own the change and they want to do it. So we've had abundant examples of disruptive innovation in recent years. Low-end, cheap digital cameras have basically been replaced by cell phone cameras. Old traditional banks are being replaced by digital wallets. Newspaper advertising is under a huge threat from online advertising, especially mobile advertising. And, this kind of change is something that has always happened and it's going on now. What is the future of business trips? So I don't think they're going to completely disappear, but we're going to see more and more occasions like this, where we're interacting with each other through distance technologies in ways that we couldn't have done before. So young people and startup companies are great sources of this kind of disruptive change. A startup company is not burdened with supporting existing business, and a young person is less tied to old habits. Both groups may be quicker to see fundamentally new possibilities. Both groups can focus with less distraction on achieving a goal for positive change. And both groups are willing to take risks that existing companies or older people may not be willing to take. But to contribute to this disruptive change really does require the approach of an entrepreneur. I go back to the 90-year-old definition of an entrepreneur from Joseph Schumpeter, which was an entrepreneur is an agent of creative destruction. Not only do you build new things and create new things, but you cause the old ways to pass away quicker. So an entrepreneur is somebody who has vision and passion. We all talk about that. An entrepreneur is someone who's willing to take risk. We all talk about that. An entrepreneur is willing to change an existing institution in order to achieve their goal. But actually, to be successful as an entrepreneur, there are other skills that we don't talk about some more, as much as we need to. The ability to execute. In order to execute successfully, you must understand all of the people who are affected by your activity, the stakeholders, and how to motivate them. You must have great team building skills to get other people to work together for your idea, to have planning ability in order to develop the right kind of strategy to bring your opportunity to reality, and also you need to be able to pivot if conditions change quickly. If you're involved in an emerging business line or an emerging kind of idea, you may find that you actually have to change the basis for your business model or your target market rather quickly. So that flexibility is important without losing your basic vision. Now, this is actually a kind of universal thing. Disruptive innovation often starts in a startup company. This is because of the kind of risk that startup companies will bear. So, if you look at the risk that your project will not succeed, and you also look at the risk that even if your technology development succeeds, the market won't buy it, really only a startup company will start something that's that risky. But Tesla Motors started here with an electric sports car. What a crazy idea. It wasn't just a really difficult technology. It was an area in which there had never been anyone who had charged over $100,000 for an electric sports car. But they demonstrated the market. They showed that they could do it. And then guess what? A few years later, the big car companies get involved. They started building electric cars for markets that they knew well. So another example, Zipcar started a car sharing application. As they demonstrated that what they could do would work, they were bought by Avis, the big rent-a-car company. And most big companies are really just engaged in kind of incrementally improving what they're already delivering. So the car companies develop slightly better automobiles each year. So a lot of times, disruptive innovation does start in a startup company. But in order to become disruptive, the startup really has to build. It has to build a new value network. Just as an aside, disruptive innovation does not necessarily mean you're trying to destroy an old industry. Google probably did not intend to threaten newspaper and TV advertising, but they grew to the point where they started to take revenue away from traditional advertisers. In contrast, Uber really did intend from the very beginning to disrupt the taxi cab business. They saw inefficiencies that were bad for consumers, bad for the users. But in both cases, they had to build a new value network. Now, a value network begins with a new market, new end users who believe in your new vision. Often that's a small group, often that's an untried group where people have never seen something before. Who were the first people that bought the Tesla Roadster cars? They were relatively wealthy, but they were also people who had a belief that this was something they really wanted to try. But you must also build new partners. You must build a new supply chain, typically, and you must change your processes. In contrast, a big firm is typically not going to be able to abandon its old way of doing things so well. To be a really successful company, you must create a win-win solution for the entire value chain, and you must keep improving the technology and customer experience so that gradually that becomes attractive to the existing mainstream market. And that's when you have disrupted, not when you catch the early adopters who see your idea from the very beginning, but when you reach the people who are just normal, average, everyday people who may not be thinking about climate change, for example. So oftentimes, what starts in a startup company does end up being delivered by a large firm. Large firms have incredible networks. They've got manufacturing capacity, they've got distribution networks, they've got existing brands. That may be the very best way for your idea to reach the largest market it can reach. In the United States, 90% of successful startup companies exit by being acquired by a large firm. Only about 10% go IPO and stay independent. I once had a friend who had a new internet network equipment company, and just before they were getting ready to go IPO, they received an offer of acquisition from Cisco Systems. And he and his friends were very good at math. They did the simulations and they figured that their company would be making about $500 million a year in 5 years if they stayed independent. But they figured they would be a $1.5 billion division of Cisco Systems if they let Cisco buy them. So they made a counteroffer to Cisco at an appropriately higher price and accepted the buyout. So this is something where you see open innovation as a way that large firms also participate in disruptive innovation. They're doing their own research and development. Most of this is dedicated to continuing their own business lines. It's dedicated to incremental improvements, but they are looking for ideas and knowledge from outside. So if you have a disruptive approach, don't ignore these people. They may be the best way for you to get your approach into the market. An example of how this works, Alphabet spent an incredible amount of money on its company internal research and development in 2019. Actually, 16% of revenues is about average for a big IT services company. But they also make a big acquisition once in a while where they spend more than $1 billion. And that gives them immediate entry into some new business area. At the same time, Google buys 10 to 25 startup companies every year. And they're typically buying something that they think is going to be critical to their profit, make a positive contribution to their profit within the next year or two. They also, further out, invest corporate venture capital in a number of firms, typically $1 million here, $1 million there. It's a much lower amount paid rather than how much it costs to actually buy something. But instead of buying control, you're investing to watch. You're investing to see how this company's idea will develop. And thank goodness, Google also spends about $100 million a year investing in university research. So that's how open innovation works by the big companies. The point here is that entrepreneurs are found in all sectors, not only in the startup companies, but also in large firms, and also in the public sector and in education. What do I mean by that? I mean that an entrepreneur is someone who is self-motivated by their own personal mission. You care about climate action. That is your mission. Now, it has to at least be compatible with your organization's mission. Otherwise, you probably won't want to stay there for very long. But it's important that even though the organization's mission may not be exactly the same as yours, for you to keep the vision and passion for what you care about and see if you can integrate it with what the organization is doing. In order to do that, you must understand the context. You have to understand the people who don't see the world like you do. Who are your coworkers? What do they care about? What about the boss? How is his performance evaluated? What do the top leaders of the organization really care about, the stakeholders? Now, you must use really clever problem solving skills to figure out how to achieve your mission as well as the organization's mission. Part of that is educating. Part of that is raising awareness for the people around you. In that regard, be very careful because you don't just communicate your vision, you must let others share the ownership of the vision. It has to become their vision too. So, what they hear is more important than you being able to say what you think needs to be said. Otherwise, it's kind of like doing a soccer cheer in the middle of an opera concert. It just doesn't work. You may mean well, you may want to encourage the people on stage, but it's more kind of the wrong kind of disruption. So, maintaining your entrepreneurship inside a large organization is a major challenge and also something very important. Um, Disruptive innovation is hard. It often takes a long time and great patience. The automobile was invented in 1886, but it really only became disruptive after the Model T Ford arrived in 1908. Why? That was what got the mainstream market. That was the first car that lots of people said was convenient, they were going to have, it was affordable. And so that means that the sustainability of the new idea, your venture, really requires be more than your life so far, right? If you're 21 years old, it may take you 30 years to really have an impact. And remember, disruptive innovation only happens because people on the outside, the mainstream, chooses to adopt your new way and give up what they had been doing. That means that success requires a deep understanding of human psychology and also of the kind of practical, real world constraints that people have. That usually takes a lot of experience. Learn from the people around you, listen to them, understand the world through their eyes, and you can help them see a better world. Usually, the idea is not going to sell itself. You really have to somehow create the awareness of need, create the awareness of a passion for change, create the awareness that what you're aiming for is well worth giving up what you've been doing. So, this is about entrepreneurship for climate action. The point is to be an agent for disruptive change, to lead other people to abandon old ways and adopt new climate friendly approaches. It's not really about growing or starting a company or, making some idea successful, but for your disruptive change to be successful, your organization must be successful too. So you must provide a win-win solution for all stakeholders, everyone who is involved. You must deliver an inclusive improvement to people's perceived quality of life. In other words, you must provide a new way that people want to adopt. So, educating about the need for change is an essential part of the process, but it is not sufficient in order to make people change. People must own the change and they must feel that they are in control of the change. You are there to influence others, to motivate others in order to achieve the goal for everyone. So, in summary, yeah, please make your career a career. If you have the idea or opportunity that will directly address climate action, please do it. If you have an opportunity to be part of an organization whose mission includes promoting or enabling climate action, that's a great place to be as well. If you're in a regular company, try to commit your organization, not just yourself, try to get your organization to commit to green principles. And no matter where you are, commit your financial resources, your influence, your knowledge, your human network to contribute to climate preservation and improvement. This is absolutely essential for us at the present time. It can be done. It's the hardest job you'll ever love. So thank you very much for your attention this morning. I'd like to open the floor to questions, and I think we have some stories from people who are doing this kind of being an agent for change. Looking forward to hear. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Professor. I would like to ask if anyone has any questions, please raise your hand and we'll take the questions then. So Ivan has a question.
Sure.
Ivan?
Thank you so much, Drishya. Thank you so much for this amazing talk, Dr. Richard. I was thinking when you said that people, in order to adopt this disruptive innovation or this disruptive idea, they need to see a change in their, I mean, they need to perceive a change in what they are in their daily life, let's say. But I was thinking of many environmental or ecologically focused organizations or projects that maybe people are not going to be able to see the changes because they are in another context, in another geographical part of the world. So what will be your advice for people that are working in these kind of initiatives? Because people are not going to be able to see the changes in the first hand.
That's a really great question, Ivan. First of all, let's talk about, say, composting trash and recycling things. It's an incredibly important thing. Why do people do it? So some people get it immediately and they want to live a lifestyle like that. Those are the early adopters. The mainstream people, probably the reason they do it is because the local authorities have distributed recycling bins and told people to compost. So the public sector has an important part in increasing, either making targets or regulations or taxes that will encourage this kind of behavior. That's not necessarily that great, because if people really resent the tax and so forth, they will be less likely to comply. So I think that there is a real role for every tool you can use to get people to see the importance of preserving our climate. And that's the first thing. Whether it's nature programs about, species that are dying, or whether it's something that makes you feel like you have a more healthy life depending on what kind of choices you make. Everything you can use in that influencing and educating way is absolutely important. You must be inclusive in your approach to doing this, so that you try to bring everyone together rather than preach at other people. But especially if it's geographically remote, it may require kind of a top-down thing where you go to the United Nations and you work on the SDGs and you try to get the governments to legislate a certain amount of compliance with better behavior. It is a big problem. It's not a problem that can be solved tomorrow, but it's not one we can wait on. That's absolutely important. And getting to the people on the outside is what it's all about, not the people who already understand it. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ivan. I think we have a question from Wade.
Yeah, my question was that first of all, the session was really interesting. I've never, I actually, when I was looking through the schedule, I pinned this down as something I have to attend because the topic interests me. My question is that for some people who are working on creating solutions or disruptive innovation in their school life or in their high school life, but are facing roadblocks because of a variety of other problems that are not in their control, what kind of places do you think they can go and implement their ideas, or how do you think they can do something on ground?
Yeah, that's also a very good question. One good thing about a school is hopefully you won't always be there. You'll graduate, right? Um, it's interesting how I find that student-run organizations can have a much bigger influence than organizations that are sort of mandated from above, that students will influence each other. And to the extent that you're not breaking rules that will get you into a lot of trouble, right? Because some places will not allow you to do that. But if you can have your own peer organization, you will probably have a better chance of getting something done than if you're under some teacher and the teacher tells you exactly what they think you ought to do. So Drishya mentioned that I studied music when I was an undergraduate. One time I was in a group of about 15 people playing a piece of music, and we had a conductor because it was a very complicated piece of music and it just wasn't coming together. So the conductor got really mad. He threw down the baton and left the room. Um, we decided we were going to do something about it. So we started working on the piece just among the 15 of us. And we started listening to each other and it came together. And the conductor was really disgusted because when he came back into the room, we were playing a lot better than we were before he left. So um, that's one thing you can do, is to work with peers. Another thing that you can do is to possibly volunteer for an accepted outside organization. There are a lot of groups in the area who have a mission that's established. They provide a more structured opportunity, right? So they've already got something that they need help with. They may need you to go around and invite people to some program. They may need you to try to influence your neighbors to recycle, whatever. But you can look for that kind of thing even while you're a student. It is very important to try to get some experience early. Be careful. Always use your observational skills to watch what reactions you're getting. Because if they stop being productive, if they stop being positive, you need to change. Either go to somebody else, you need to approach. Kind of based on what you're doing on observation and analysis is a critical part of having a good influence. Um, good luck with this, because it is really true that a lot of existing organizations just don't get it. That applies in schools, it applies in universities, it applies in companies, it applies in governments, it applies just about everywhere.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ved.
Thank you, Wade. Do we have any more questions from the participants?
Could I request Edgar to share his experience, please? Thank you. Hola, hermano.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Dr. Ash, hermano. My name is Edgar. For those who doesn't know me, I have to be honest. I'm pretty new in all these themes and in climate change, but I'm really interested in be more part of it. That's why I'm here, and I pretty understand all that you the honor we have to hear from you, Professor Richard. It was a really honor, and I'm really pleased about what you talk about. I really understand this disruptive change that we have to bet and to yeah to be part of the change. I mean, I pretty understand that. Well, I'm a classical musician. I'm from a conservatory. Well, I'm a composer, and I feel that to be like in a very far uh, state of work, or I don't know how to say it, but I I feel that making this change to help to the climate change is like a way of my retribution to the earth, and to pay retribution to the earth. So I'm pretty interested to be part of the change for the solution, because I totally believe that there is still hope in human and in the human race. And yeah, so that's my experience, and I love I love all of you. I love your attitude, um your connection with each other. I'm pretty honored to be here and to to hear from all of you. And this session was totally an honor for me. Thank you so much, and thank you so much.
That's a very kind comment, Edgar. Thank you very much. Are you still a student?
Yeah, I'm in my mid college right now. So
Okay. So how did you first hear about the pop
yeah,
movement?
yeah, I was in well, I was in a residency, artistic residency of with a common friend of Ash Pachari and me. This friend is called Eleonora Isunza. So Eleonora Isunza was like like a mentor for me. And then I met Dr. Ash, and we had like a very strong connection. He is my hermano, and so that's why I have like more connection with pop movement, and I'm pretty honored to be part of the family. So that's why.
So you see, a lot of times it starts with a personal connection.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
is indeed what leads people to really make a difference.
Yeah.
And I applaud you for that.
Thank
And, you know, one thing that I had one slide on about disruptive innovation being hard, find the things now that you can use when times are tough. Okay. When you feel under pressure, either financial pressure for finding a job or other kinds of pressure from friends who don't really recognize what you recognize, or possibly even from family that doesn't want you to do what you're doing. Um, find ways to keep the passion, to keep the vision. And part of it is understanding them and listening to them and understanding what they have to do. But don't give up, okay?
Okay.
You don't ever have to give up, even though things really push you. So for everybody here, Edgar, I'm not picking on you. For everybody here, plan ahead for when things are tough.
Thank you so much. That's really beautiful, very insightful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Edgar.
Thank you, Edgar. Professor Dasher, I have a question actually. So my
Okay.
question is, how climate change impacts is distributed across countries in the technology sector. You gave us an example of automobile, like at a large scale, and you mentioned about the drift that is happening because of Tesla and other such companies. But if we compare the technology sector from US and other Asian countries that are developing countries, how do you see that the climate change impact will be distributed?
So this is often a political problem, right? I want to kind of suggest, though, that one of the things that's happened is people were too late to notice what impact they were having on the world. So we had an entire generation or two generations or 100 years of an industrial revolution that happened without a great deal of consideration for climate change. So the countries that went furthest in those revolutions and had developed the biggest industrial bases really became the major contributors to global warming through, greenhouse gas emissions and a lot of other trouble. So it's true, these countries bear responsibility, and the United States is one of them, bear responsibility for that. But for everyone's benefit, we must change that model. Fortunately, the most recent industrial revolution is all about digital technology, and it offers a lot of promise for saving energy and for using less energy and for, improving the environment. But the big change that we have to make from now is to conceive of our, especially economic activities, in a way that factors in sustainability and social inclusiveness from the very beginning. Otherwise, on the climate side, you have unsustainability. We can't keep going this way. And on the social side, you really have digital divides, you have inequality that is unacceptable. And that leads to really bad things like, wars and revolutions. So I think that the countries that have developed because all of us depend on them continuing their development in this bigger model where you're thinking about sustainability and inclusiveness at the same time as you're thinking about economic growth. That's not the previous winners trying to oppress the next winners, but that's the way it's turned into in a lot of political discussions. But it's absolutely, this is why it's essential to bring people into the kind of arena of recognizing that they own the change from now. It's not that somebody else is trying to tell them to do something. I'm very happy to see a lot of interest in China in more environmentally sustainable solutions. That's a really good thing. But it's a difficult transition because we cannot afford to make mistakes and fix them later anymore. This just doesn't work anymore. We've gotten to the point where we can't go back from some of the changes that we've caused. So we must have a different way of approaching this thing, and it's more difficult, it's more complicated. So thanks very much for your question on that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I don't know if anyone else has a question from the audience.
Okay, well, I don't have a question. It's actually just a comment. I just wanted to thank you because I'm a senior in high school and I'm in the process of having to choose a career. I just finished my sophomore year, and it helped me a lot to know that any career is a climate career. Of course, depending on the angle in which you look at it and the desire that you have to impact your community and to generate a change, right? But yeah, I really wanted to impact, and I was like feeling the pressure of choosing like the perfect career that could balance what I wanted to study and the passion that I have for climate.
Nahid, what a great comment. Thank you.
Yeah.
So look, I started out in music. I did music all the time even after I decided I wasn't going to be a professional musician. I did music while I was in grad school in one field. Then I decided I didn't want to be a college professor. I went to work for the State Department training American diplomats about Japan and Korea. Then I went into the private sector to get some business experience. And finally, guess what? I wound up at the university again. So sometimes I feel like I want to say, I'll let you know what I want to do when I grow up, when I figure it out. The nice thing is it doesn't really matter, okay, on the one hand. But when people ask me, and I talk to a lot of my students about career choices, what they should be doing, take a bit reflecting when you were happiest. What are the things that you've done in your life that really made you happy, that gave you a feeling of accomplishment? Was it working with other people? Was it solving a problem? Was it achieving recognition for something that you had done? What kind of recognition means a lot to you? Financial or, having a great social status? That kind of thing is knowing yourself. College is a great time for you to do that, okay? In fact, I think that's probably what the college experience is about more than anything else, is figuring out what you really want to do. And it's not so much, I've got to have a career because I have this responsibility or whatever. It's really what you will be happiest at, because that's what you'll be most successful at. And I want to encourage you to enjoy that journey. Okay, it's not something you have to feel a lot of pressure about. I've had some really interesting experiences in my college career with students whose parents really had this vision for them to do something. And the students just really found out that they really weren't cut out for that. They would really much rather do something else. That's a hard discussion to have. So you need to be able to prepare to communicate difficult things like that. Two students that I worked with, I remember one, and both of these were incredibly gifted students, right? One of them came to me and said, Professor Dasher, I've just gotten a full fellowship to do a PhD in economics at UCLA. I'm thinking, wow, great for you. And she says, how do I explain it to my family? What? They wanted her to be a physician. And another student who decided that she really cared about interplanetary weather. She wanted to study interplanetary science. So how does she explain to her family that she's not going to go into business and make a lot of money? She'll have a good impact. She will have an impact like nobody else in the world can have. And you will have an impact like nobody else in the world can have. Enjoy the journey of finding it, but do prepare some communication skills.
Thank you very much. I was also in your session last year, and I was really looking forward to this session. Thank you very much. You really helped me a lot with that answer. I really appreciate it.
Nahid, thank you. And, thanks to everybody here, especially those of you who were kind enough to want to hear me talk again after December. I'm absolutely honored to be with you. I think that you all are a great group. I'm really proud to get to know this group. I'm one of the people on the side. I can't be one of you, but I can be on the side and I can help. And I really want to do that. And it's a real joy to me to keep in touch. I wanted to mention, I'll send my slides in so that everybody can have a copy of the slides. I think the video is going to be available. I would always be happy to talk to anyone. I'm frequently under severe time constraints, but I will try to answer an email if you get an email to me. I'm not hard to find. So, let's keep in touch. Nahid, thank you very much. Thanks for coming back.
Thanks to you, Professor. It was an honor for me.
Thank you, Nahid. With your permission, if I may ask one more question, Dr.
I think so.
Thank you. So actually, my question is basically on these days when we talk to businesses, to industries that really want to transition and they want to really work on a plan, and they approach our organization or any of the organizations that are working on, sustainability and environment. So the first thing that comes to our mind is developing a framework on ESG, and that's the first step to maybe start, the transition for those companies who haven't started yet. So I wanted to ask you, in the technology or in the if in the as you mentioned that every career is can be related to sustainability and environment. There is no need to just particularly look for it. So is there any other way or something that we actually should consider while, start working on that kind of a plan other than ESG?
So one of the key issues for a company is to be able to measure its performance. And that's typically done in revenue growth or profit growth or, some sort of a measure. We're in the middle of developing better measures for impact. So one of the problems with the UN SDGs is there's no measurement attached, right? How do you measure progress along these lines? So there are a number of macroeconomic kind of indexes that fit this. I think that we need better models for the economics of what a company does. How do you figure in the cost of carbon, right? I mean, that's a huge controversy right now. So we need better scholarship in that regard. In the meantime, I think that if you can find ways that companies can measure progress, whether it's the number of people who have switched over to electric vehicles, or the number of people who are directly, making a commitment to reduce their pollution, or their, things that they do that lead to greenhouse gases. You need things you can measure. And that's absolutely critical for the companies to be able to justify to their boards and to their shareholders what they're doing. So that's one thing. And to a certain extent, you just have to pick the best measure you can find. But there's a lot of room for cleverness in looking at, the facts that will show the impact. So that would be one thing I would really try to emphasize in working with the companies. They have to be able to measure, or they can't do anything. That's a great question too. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Dr. Ash, would you like to say something?
Thank you. I just want to say that this is such an important subject, Dr. Dasher, and thank you for sort of sharing the most valuable principles and values that we can embrace in this process. I think that lies at the heart of it. And your message is about following one's heart and what it is that really stirs one's own passion is so important, because I think that is where success will really emerge, and to never give up. I think these are really crucial. I know there'll always be times when things are good, and then there'll be times when things aren't so great, and one needs to be prepared for that time, but just keep on going and never give up. So I think that those are just absolutely incredible messages and really important things. They may sound basic,
well
but they're
said.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And your words mean so much, because I just want to say, and I reiterate, I know messages that everybody shared, but you're such a precious part of the Pop family, and we're truly. I know there are some people who are not here too, who literally just keep saying your name. I hear them talk about you all the time. They're so inspired by you, and they're gonna tune into this conversation, I know, later. There's just different time zones and things, and so I just want to say that it's not just those in the room. There's a universe out there that loves you and respects you and has so much regard for you, and thank you for your words of wisdom and the values that you share. Also hearing your personal story just makes it that much more powerful for all of us. So thank you for sharing. I don't know. I know we're just about ready to close, but if there is like in a few seconds, if Meera, Muchi, Priyanka, anybody else, I know there's another A here who's Drishya, but maybe not Mahi. Anybody else who wants just any quick reflections, please. But I just want to say thank you so much, Dr. Dasher. This has been absolutely beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ash.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dasher. Just a quick reflection that I had was, like I mentioned in the beginning, we work with a lot of young people. Ved is one of them who we work very closely with, and he's here. And we were wondering if there's any scope in the future for, I know you have a very tight schedule, but we would love to send a formal invitation and have you just speak to some of the young people we work with, just to give them some guidance. They're just in their middle school, high school, and I think it's the right time to shape and mold them and have them listen to you and also put forward their thoughts to you. So it's just an invitation I wanted to extend. Of course, I will do it formally as well. But thank you so much, Dr. Dasher, once again for this absolutely incredible session. It means the world to us.
Thank you, Priyanka. I have one big disadvantage. I can't say no to an invitation like that. So I look forward to receiving it.
Thank you, Dr. Dasher. That's amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dasher, for such an insightful session. I really do believe it's what we, the young people, need. We need the elders, our predecessors who have treaded this path and have had great experiences to come in and guide us and tell us what to do. Probably from there, how things fail to work, and more of like guide us on what is best for us to do in our time. And I think that's what you've dedicated yourself to do. And I'm really so humbled, and it's been a great session. Thank you so much.
Meda, thank you very much. I need to keep listening to you, everybody on the pop movement too.
Thank you, Dr. Meda. Dr. Dasher Meda is a bright young leader from Uganda and is really sort of invested in making change throughout the continent. So, your words and vision mean so much. And I just want to say thank you. It counts for everything. We look forward to seeking your advice and guidance as we progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dash.
Okay, and I also wanted to say thank you to, although I joined late, but I'm able to hear from your story that you have a background in the creative arts, just like myself. I'm a visual artist, and I'm trying to synchronize my career into the climate career, and this has really helped me. I really wanted to join, but because I had to join early, but because of a lot of other engagements. And I'm coming from the Parents for Future. It's a global movement that supports the Fridays for Future. So we'll invite you also to one of our meetings.
Thank you. Amuche.
Yes.
Good
I'm from
luck with this
Nigeria.
process. Okay.
Yeah, that's a different take, Dr. Dasher. So she's leading Parents for Future and is really working with the two generations together. And it's a unique initiative. So thank you, Amuchi, for sharing.
I look forward to learning more.
Okay. Thank you so much for what you're doing. We are all supporting the young people, and that gives us a lot of hope, because if our own generation we fell back on what we saw, for them it's not the same thing. And I'm happy that a lot of people, a lot of them that are making efforts to get things right. Thank you, pop movements too.
Thank you, Mochi.
Thank you, Ajay. That has surely been such an insightful question and answers and discussion, and also the slides that Dr. Dash covered. We would now like to thank each and every one who was part of this meeting, and also to all those who are watching this online. And I would like to request you, if you are posting anything related to the sessions on festival, do not forget to use the hashtag for festival 2021. As we are live, we'll definitely share the YouTube link with Dr. Dasher and everybody who is part of the meeting. And thank you once again for joining us. We have our next session in about 30 minutes, which will be on a different link, which we'll definitely post on the chat. So see you there. It will be a youth leadership conversation with Shia Bastida. And thank you so much once again for joining us today.
Thank
See
you,
you
Dr.
very
Dasher.
soon.
And thank you,
Thanks,
Pop,
everybody.
the rest of the Pop family, mis hermanas y hermanos. Thank you, family. Thank you.
Thank
With
you very much.
all our love.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Bye-bye. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.